Hey folks, Kheldul here. I wanted to show you some DPS macros, or macros to help out anybody, really. They're not specifically for hunters, and some of them could be used for non-DPS situations. So let's start with something easy. Um, we've got a little macro here, and I have it switch between my tier 90 talents. So right now it's doing glaive toss, and if I switch to barrage and I actually learn it, then it's doing barrage. And so let me show you a bit of the underpinnings of that. That really takes a lot of the, oh, where's that spell, and pull it onto your bar, and oh my god, I hated that stuff. So let's see, it's right here. Show tooltip, so it'll show the active one. I have this thing only work in combat, so if this is if you tend to lead off with this type of ability, you're not going to be able to use this unless you're not the one initiating combat. In any case, I do that because you've seen that I have to actually touch it before it shows you what the ability is. And if I did that, if I didn't have this combat thing in here, then we actually fire the ability too. So don't want to do that. In any case, the magic is right here at the end. We do a run and we step through the abilities. So we've got and the naming of the macro is very important. So I've got this AoE talents because that's really what all these particular tier are. You could do it for other abilities, other tiers, although really doesn't have. A lot of these things don't necessarily have three active abilities that you'd be pressing. I have one for Murder Crows and Lynx Rush. Don't have anything for Blink Strikes because that's a passive. In any case, this little loop here figures out what ability you actually have as far as spells, and it sets it as the spell info, and so you get that as the tooltip. So hitting this doesn't do anything because I'm not in combat, so I'd have to lead off with something else, and then it does that ability. Okay. So that's number one, and that's a really useful ability because if you're like me, that's another little disadvantage. You have to wait for that to come off cooldown, so 10 more seconds. But I substitute barrage and glaive toss depending on which boss fight I'm doing or what kind of environment I'm in. Generally I default to glaive toss, just matter of course. But barrage has a lot of interesting fights. Mercy is heroic, and well, there's a bunch of things where it's obviously more interesting or more useful. So let's see, what else? As I said, I have one for level 75 that's very similar. Right now, I really should have something better for this because actually Blink Strike doesn't make any sense there because we don't have that anymore. I can just get rid of that. What else? I leave it there because if I do switch to Lynx Rush and Murder Crows, then I don't have to draw it onto my bar. I'll show you some conditional things, fight conditional things. So let's see, do I have it under general? I guess it's general. Let's see, slimes. Okay, so if you're doing Dark Shaman, and one of the tasks that you have is to kill all the slimes really fast. Well, I really like having just a little macro here, so that it targets the slime, and then I cast multi-shot. And generally, if I'm running with Thrill of the Hunt, that's pretty much guaranteed thing to come off. Once I've got somebody targeted, then I'll probably use a barrage. but just being able to target is really useful, and it can speed up your DPS a lot, of course. This is another thing. This for heroic. Was it? Oh my gosh, this is the third boss in Siege. Anyway, there's a step where you really need to immediately target a corrupted fragment to release them so they get out of the Pac-Man mode. That's great. Another, you can think of it as a DPS thing. If you have a paladin that might hand protection to you for some reason, but generally hunters need it for deterrence anyway. You've got deterrence going on. You want to be able to stop it when you need to stop it. So, for instance, if there's a pulse of damage that the boss does, or if you're just could be PvP and you're reflecting a cast against somebody, you do your deterrence. That thing goes off. You're not affected, or it gets reflected, or you're only take 50% damage, or whatever it might be. You want to be able to turn it off so you can start DPSing again. Unless, of course, you're like an explosive trap and you think that's damage or something. And it might be. You know, it's useful to. Sometimes it's useful to keep that deterrence up. Heroic, Dark Shaman. There's a thing where you have to. When a debuff finally ticks down, it's a 60-second debuff, and when it gets down to that, 2 or 3 seconds, you click your deterrence so that you don't miss it. Then you're not affected, and then you turn off as soon as you see the debuff is gone. So this is a DPS ability, and being able to clear this quickly and easily is really pretty important. Some other things. Oh, well, actually, let me do a really basic DPS ability. So let's find kill command. Okay, so I've got a lot of stuff loaded in here, but essentially making sure that the pet is attacking, doing Bestial Wrath, then doing kill command. Got some other stuff in here, Rabid. I'm not sure if that's really even something anymore. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown, so it may not be available. But all these things can fire because they're different abilities. Bestial Wrath doesn't initiate the. It's independent of the global cooldown, I believe. Kill command, because you only have to hit this button once. Kill command is your spell ability. This is just pet instructions, so those fire as well. And Rabbit, that's a pet ability that fires as well. I've got this stuff wrapped within, removing sound effects so that you don't hear, "Oh, ability not available," because obviously your Bestial Wrath is not going to be available every time you hit kill command. You should be hitting kill command on cooldown if you're a Beastmaster Hunter. There are other things that are very similar, for other classes, or and certainly other Hunter specializations. But and the other thing is I remove the errors so that it doesn't say, "Oh, that ability's not available," and fill up your screen. So that's a really good DPS ability. What else? Oh, another thing, I've got multi-shot here. That I have that actually as a macro. So the reason I have it as macro, and that's lowercase m, uppercase m. Okay. So I've got start attack, cast multi-shot. This one's a little bit more involved, and really this one is it's for heavy AOE fights, where and sometimes I do it. I probably actually should have it in its default, but making sure that the pet is attacking, doing multi-shots, but also doing Bestial Wrath. Doing a Bestial Wrath within a multi-shot, because if you're Beastmaster, you've got some nice cleave action going on. So let me just show you this. And if you've got Bestial Wrath going on, when your pet is cleaving, you're going to do more damage. So here we are, and we do not have our pet I don't know, I've got a little timer bar for beast cleave, but if you kick that in, then your pet is doing more damage with that beast cleave for the time that your Beastal Wrath is effective. Oh, actually, let me show you Feign Death. So, so this has wipe prevention, as well as some just soloing. It's nice and easy to call your pet back, making sure that you're not attacking, and to feign death. So you might have an action in progress. You hit feign death. It could be queued, but you might actually still attack. I've found that this just works a lot better. Obviously, if you dismiss your pet and then feign death, you're in a much better situation. But even this is good for just kind of withdrawing from a combat. Alright, let me show you disengage. This is my disengage macro, so I've got on F1. Okay. I like being able to jump off cliffs, and so jumping off a cliff, you want to disengage when you are really close to the ground, but not too close. I'd say a good 10, 20 feet is fine, because you won't die from that height. The idea is you don't want to die. If you're thinking that you can disengage and you're only going to be about this high, you're probably going to be dead because of latency between the client and server. In any case, one thing that I added here, I added stop casting because I think it's really useful to disengage when you want to disengage, especially in a lot of fights where you need to be really, really precise on where you're going. Although precision is not necessarily the thing that you want for disengage. Like if we're running around and we just kind of want to, didn't have to be perfect, but it's useful. And also, I love post haste. I never used to use post haste. I use it all the time now, unless there's some reason why I need to have I'm soaking deterrences back to back as much as possible. So heroic protectors, every single time, if you've got this selected, you'll have the cooldown available unless you're doing too much damage to the protectors, and which actually happened last night when we did it with 2 healers instead of 3. In any case, so back to disengage. I add dismount because I love being able to jump off a cliff while mounted or not mounted. I don't have to dismount first. And if you dismount, that's a free action in casting disengage. No problems. I probably should actually add that into deterrence. In fact, why don't I do it right now? Dismount. So in PvP situations, you can dismount and deterrence right away. You don't have to oh, where's my dismount button, or click something off and then hit deterrence. No. What else? So I could do misdirect. Let's see. This is kind of nice too. Oh gee. Let's just go through in order, I suppose. Alright, so interrupt. Actually, I've got a couple different interrupts. Let me show you this one. So this one I'm use because actually I flip between them. So intimidation is pretty nice. I've got it in a kind of PvE style mode, although I do use it in PvP too. So stop casting, then cast sequence. So this is doing it based on how long. So intimidation is 1 minute cooldown, but counter shot has a 24-second cooldown, I believe. Let's see. Yes. So I can hit an interrupt, and then if I hit before 24 seconds go past, it'll use intimidation instead. If I hit again, then it's going to use counter shot again if it's available. Okay. You have to have these stop castings here so that the interrupt goes off exactly when you want, or as soon as you can. What else? Let's get out of trade. So let's see. Right, and of course this one just has it without. I might be using Wyvern Sting, might be using Binding Shot. For raiding, Binding Shot comes into play maybe, well, less often than Intimidation. Heroic and Mercius is kind of a nice place for that. There are a few other places, but next one on the list, Kill Shot. Pretty simple. I've got this as my number 2 button. Stop casting, kill shot. I like to get that kill shot in as soon as possible. Really, you're going to be hitting that twice, although it has to acknowledge the shot time from you to the boss and the acknowledgement of the server and client. So sometimes if you have a pretty large ping time, you might do a kill shot. You might actually add in like an arcane shot and then a kill shot. You might make this a cast sequence or something with a timer for 10 seconds to reset the cast sequence. Oh, the other thing you should know or notice, so I've got some things up on this bar, and I've got, if you can see, that's a T and that's an R. It's because generally I'm using the mouse and I'm using the WASD keys, but then I've got R, which is kind of my most commonly hit spam button, and my hand also does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the keyboard. So, but then I've got this twitch type of thing, which is T, and that's always my interrupts for every character I've got. So R and T are my additional buttons. Then somewhat kind of like slap type of keys. I've got F1 through 4. So I can show you those as well. But let's go through the misdirect. So this is misdirect number 7. There are a whole bunch of different type of misdirects that I've experimented around with. This is pretty much the easiest. I will always set a focus. So I have that bound to F, setting focus. And we've got, so all I have to do is, if I have a focus, click that, and then I'm going to misdirect all my next stuff against my focus target. That's nice and useful. I could just hit Shift, and that would do it against my pet, if my pet's alive. And otherwise, if none of that's set, or if my focus target's out range or whatever, clicking it, and then I actually have to click on the raid frame to misdirect, which is kind of a drag. There's probably other people may have add-ons for this. I've got some add-ons that have this kind of capability. I've just stuck with this macro. It's pretty nice and simple. Multi-shot I've shown. So this pet heal. Well, given that your pet, no matter your specialization, it's important to keep it alive. This one I've got set, so there's not too much going on. It can do all sorts of things. It's kind of the all-in-one pet macro. You summon your pet if it's not there, or it will res your pet if it's not there, although sometimes that's not really going to work, so you also have res available. Some fights, your pet automatically gets blown away. I don't like having to click this and then pick the specific pet that I have available. I like to have the immediate click, so it's only one operation, takes less time. More efficiency, right? Anyway, so this also, I've got a nice little need to know bar that shows the men-pet progression. If I'm doing some pet tanking, or if my pet is really low on health, I know exactly when it would be effective to hit it again. I also have a shift so that I can have it heal itself. you'll note that this went away. Sorry, I'm talking a little fast here, but I want to get all these things in. I've got this thing here, and this specifically just healed me. So F3, boom, and it will heal me if my pet's around and has that ability. Let's see. What else? Multi-pet. Right, pet OE. Okay, so this is for pet tanking stuff. I'm not going to show you that. I'll do that later. Okay. So, go outside. Let's see here. So, I could be targeting this guy, and I click my middle mouse button, and it does this operation because it's a mouse over. Oh, wait a minute. Is it a mouse over? Sorry. I think that's the wrong one. Yeah, alright. It's the wrong one. So I got that bound to my middle mouse button, bound to something that I typically don't use down here. And it's SRS. So that's a mouse over. There it is. So I can dot up different targets, and unfortunately WoW doesn't let you see progression of these things unless you actually click on them for real. So you could probably have an improved form of this if you did a target and then target, last target, but as far as mouse overing, I'm not sure really how to combine that. Anyway, let's see, what else? Trank. I guess I could show you that. So this is mouse over just for a tranquilizing shot. I'll sub that in occasionally. Generally speaking, though, I like to actually have to target the creature unless there's some reason why I know that I would just, mouse over, trank it, mouse over, trank it. And so I'd be hitting F4. But generally, I'm just hitting F4 on my current target. And if I have to skip around, I will. Boom, 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 boom. What else? You could use, if you've got a spirit piece, you could lob in pet heals on your focus target or your tank. What else? This is just a nice, friendly res for your. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. Where is it? There. Just lets people know that you're casting mass res. It's a hunter type of thing generally because we can survive quite often. What else? What else is nice? Oh, concussion. So, or I was going in order. Although I think I ran out of those. Good. So cancel. Concussion. Here we go. So this I typically use in PvP, although I'll use in PvE as well. It's kind of because I am not ready to add more keybinds. I should have deterrence keybind. I should have scattershot, which is a stun keybind. I should have this better keybind for my trinketing. And here, let's. So if I'm in my PvP gear, maybe I would actually change it for specialization. In any case, fragment. Yeah, I showed that. These are kind of old school. You don't need them so much anymore. Changing your making sure that your pet's doing all the right things. Oh, this is just a quality of life thing. Fetch. So I showed this in much greater detail. Blizzard thankfully changed it a little bit, but then I added some nice things to it. What I like to do is I like to make sure that when I do fetch, I don't generally have auto loot on, which is, maybe it's weird. If you have auto loot on all the time, okay. But you don't want to pick up stuff that maybe you shouldn't sometimes. In any case, so hitting fetch temporarily turns on auto loot and then turns it off based on if you actually had it set originally that way. Otherwise, it's not going to do much. Fetch is great. I kind of it's a dumb little glyph, but you know there aren't that many important things at tier level. I don't even tame beast. I probably should have the whatchamacallit. Oh yeah, it's not even an issue. So what else? A lot of people have like attack macros, and it puts a hunter's mark on it, and then it does a start attack and it does a pet attack. I don't feel a lot of need for that type of stuff. Alright, so here's the last one that's visible on my bar, at least my bottom bar, and that's, I called it help. Oops, right here. So I'll do a master's call, intervene, roar of sacrifice, bullheaded. That's assuming my pet isn't ferocity or tenacity. It's doing the other. Let's see, pet cunning. But you know, because roar of sacrifice is not available if you're doing these other things. But it's not a big deal. Generally, for PvE, you know, doing a master's call is very nice. It gets rid of all the speed slows and immobilizations. So let's see. What else? Is there anything else that's really nice here? Slimes, marks. This is nice for setting whatchamacallit, markers. I guess I have to be in an instance or something. Yeah. Or a raid leader or whatever. What else? Anything here? Mount. That's really just going into an ability. What else? I think that's about it. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And I don't know. Hopefully this was interesting. The website will have all of the macros that I've discussed actually written out, so that you can copy paste them if you like. Enjoy and have a good day.